Hey there guys and welcome back. Just wanted to take some time in this video to talk to you guys about two things I want to give my opinion on, and I may ramble some during it since it's going to be about two things, and one of them is just something I disagreed with Swim recently talked about. I want people to automatically assume I'm a Swim hater when I'm not, just because I disagree with something he said. So let's get into this. First off, yeah, I like Swim. He's one of the most chill, popular streamers. Seems like a nice guy overall. He's also a really good Gwent player and deck builder, and he's usually helpful to a lot of people. So yeah, I just hope you guys understand that I don't even have the slightest amount of dislike towards the guy, um, just because I have a different opinion. But there's only one person that I really dislike, and that's something that I'll get into after. That's the second thing, because I figured, hey, if I'm gonna get hate on video, might as well put both the things in them. But most people don't like the guy anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem. But let's get into this. This is about Swim and a recent video he made, why Gwent needs more RNG. uh, I'll put a link in the description down below so you guys can actually watch the whole thing, because I'm just going to use small clips as referencing points. But I mean, he put some work into it, so it's pretty good. I suggest you watch it. I mean, I watched some of his content, so yeah. I'll just get right into this one and talk about some of the points he made, because I disagree with a lot of them. A couple of them are decent points, but yeah, we'll just get into it.
The problem of the coin flip. So you may say, wait, well, what does the coin flip have to do with the amount of RNG in Gwent? Well, there you have a slightly counterintuitive bit, which is that the problem is that when you have a game that loses a lot of RNG and becomes very, very mechanical, very mathematical, very formulaic as Gwent is, it distills it down to whatever factors are remaining. And a lot of that is player skill, and that's a good thing. That's why Gwent emphasizes more skill than something like Hearthstone, but that's not all the case, because it also it exaggerates and amplifies other such factors, such as the coin flip. For example, if you take Gwent and you scale it to have the same amount of RNG as Hearthstone does, which I'm not suggesting you should do, but let's think about it. If you did, basically you'd see coin flip win rates start to equalize at closer to 50%. I personally, after knowing both the Hearthstone and Gwent coin flip win rate statistics across all different MMR levels, am pretty sure, and I can't say I'm 100% sure, but I am personally pretty confident that what you would find is that when you scale them to have the same RNG, Gwent actually has less of a coin flip variance in terms of win rate from loser to winner than Hearthstone does.
Yeah, his first point here about RNG would affect coin flip win rates, bringing closer to 50%. Because if you add more RNG, then yeah, the RNG of the coin flipped is sort of balanced out. He's not wrong here at all, because that's how it works. I mean, basically, to break it down simpler, is yeah, you got the RNG of the coin flip, that sort of matters, but then you add in RNG cards, and it's sort of like another coin flip. Like, oh, if you get the really good coin flip on this card, then it's going to sort of balance out the fact that you lost RNG of the initial coin flip. Then your opponent's going to play a card that's technically like a coin flip with a bunch of RNG, and if they get a bad outcome, then yeah, you're in a more better spot. So it's going to equal out to more 50-50 then. Yes, but I really do not think that the way of solving the coin flip issue is to add more coin flips into the game, because this is basically what RNG is just more coin flips. When they get into the competitive scene, at least, if they're in the fun scene, it's totally different, because the fun scene is the fun scene. Um, they're for the Timmy players, and I'm a bit of a Timmy player, but I'll get into what that means later. But yeah, the coin flip, yeah, balancing out the coin flip with more RNG to make more coin flips in the game. I do not agree with that at all. That's why I don't like Hearthstone, and I haven't liked it in a long time, because there's just too much of it. And you can have, I'm pretty certain they're gonna be able to find a way to balance the coin flip, which without RNG. Which, if you look at the last tournament of the Gwen Open, the coin flip actually variance was a lot closer. So you can't really abuse the coin flip, at least the win loss rate, because yeah, those guys would have figured it out definitely, because they're the top players. But yeah, that's just one of the points. I'm not saying that he's wrong, because He's not. It would bring closer to 50-50%, just in the wrong way.
Problem for Gwent, if not maybe a bigger problem, is the problem that the meta in Gwent gets solved or stagnant very quickly compared to other games. We've kind of seen it happen before. If you've been playing Gwent for a while, if you've been playing other card games to compare it to, you'll notice that the meta in Gwent after even a relatively big patch, like take for example the patch we had a couple months ago with 35 cards, 30 of them being bronze cards, which of course have the most meta impact simply because they define archetypes you're able to play. Even after that big patch, everyone was excited about Gwent for a while, but the meta gets resolved pretty extremely quickly, and it's hard for decks to kind of like remain as stealthy because
Hey, here he says the meta gets I don't know what. This is the one that I really disagree with. The meta gets stagnant compared to other card games. I've I've played card games my whole life. Tons of different ones, and it, Gwent's meta is actually one of the freshest metas at all times compared to other card games. I mean, it kind of can feel stagnant because there's no draft mode at the moment or any other thing to play besides, yeah, normal decks. So it might be have something to do with why he's feeling that. But I mean, you take Hearthstone for example, because that's the one he references. The meta in there, they come out with a new set every 4 months, and every 4 months, people are deck building, they're figuring out new stuff, and usually within 2 to 3 weeks, you have all your top tier decks, and those top tier decks are killer decks. Like, nothing stands a chance against Hearthstone's top tier decks. You can't take a fun deck and go fight a top tier deck and win unless you're like just a crazy better player than that guy is. But yeah, the Gwent meta is never really stale. Like even with these last couple patches that I've been playing from, because I've been playing for the last 6 months. But we've had decks coming out more than a month after the patch, like new decks. Um, what's an example? Last patch, Spies came out. That came out way late, and then Northern Realms, Double Scorch Machine combo deck. That one came out like 3 weeks before the new patch hit. That's like a month and a week that, yeah, you have a fresher meta. I mean, yeah, some days, I mean, you have like a week where people are playing, oh, Consume right now because net decking and everything, which I'm not against at all. But yeah, you have Consume decks, and then, yeah, it kind of feels stale because you've been facing Consume decks because everybody thinks that's the best at the moment. But then after that week, we had like a new deck kind of type come out, and then when Spies came out, everybody was playing Spies, and I was like, oh, Spies are really good. But everybody was just playing Skelga, thinking that was the best, like a week before that. But yeah, it's not what causes it to go stale, and RNG is not going to help that at all. Um, what causes it to go stale is mostly because you got I want to say influential people to the Gwent scene, like Mega Moai, Swim, Merchant, Freddy Babes, Super JJ, people like that. And then you got Gwent DB too, where they make a good deck, and it is a good deck because they're good deck builders. Like it's and everybody sees that deck. They see them doing well with that deck. They see this deck's win rates and that it's actually doing really well in the current meta. And then they go and they copy it and they play it for themselves. And then if it's a more influential person, more and more people are copying it. And then eventually people start losing against this deck and they're looking up like, the heck is this deck that I'm losing against? And they start trying it out themselves. And that's sort of how you get a stale meta because everybody's using the same deck because they think that is the best deck at the moment. Even though, as you can see if you actually pay attention during the meta, that, yeah, like a week later, another deck comes out that you have not seen much on the ladder or anything at all, but then all of a sudden everybody's playing this deck. Like, an example from this patch would be Hand Buff. Hand Buff was really popular at the beginning parts of this patch, and it sort of phased out. Veterans were nowhere to be seen, and we're like a month in. Veterans, when did Veterans start being ran? Like a week ago? A week ago, veterans started really being ran by people, and that's 3 weeks still. And we still have, I bet there's going to be another deck coming out that's pretty crazy that people haven't really been running yet. But it's just that people grab decks because it's easier and it's really tedious and time consuming to try to make a meta deck, especially if you're not a really, really efficient deck builder and can instantly figure out what pieces are wrong in your deck. Because, yeah, you have to use a crappy deck against people who are running meta decks, and that's no fun just instantly losing. I mean, some people find it fun to figure out the pieces, and then when they actually play enough games and figure out what pieces are wrong, they start to make this good deck that's playable, and then it gets better and better, and then people copy it, and then all of a sudden that's the meta deck, and everybody's using it. Um, as far as RNG making the meta less stale, not at all. I mean, RNG would make fun decks really cool, which I'm not against RNG, just I'm against competitive RNG, which there's a big difference because fun RNG is where the card can be kind of cool and like, oh yeah, I can have a one whatever chance of grabbing you something good, and then the other options are all right, but it can create some funny moments like Avalok the Sage. Avalok the Sage, you can grab a Tibber from your opponent, have them draw a card, and then they ignite you, and you're like, oh man. Or you could grab that Iris and have something to kill it with and get a ton of value off of it. So cards like that really cool, where the variance of what they can grab you is very big. But cards that would start coming into the meta, they're so good with their RNG choices. Like there's one actually that I'm gonna be doing a video on. I might actually come up before this video of that's like a bad example of it. But yeah, RNG cards not gonna keep the meta fresh because people are still gonna find out the best cards to run. And if they're competitive RNG cards, then you're just gonna have people who you get lucky sometimes, and it's gonna be harder to climb because you're not only are you gonna have to rely on your skill, you're gonna have to rely on luck, which I'm not the luckiest person around. So I really hate RNG. But yeah, let's continue.
This is also related to a problem that Gwent has, where net decking is maybe a little more prevalent than in other games, even although, of course, it's very prevalent in other games, simply because Gwent is so formulaic, it's so distilled down to its core factors, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, but it is so far down that road that many players will often feel like they might need to net deck to stay in the competition, right? Because Gwent is a game of really two factors, those being player skill and, of course, the decks, the cards that you're using, that, you know, unless you can have the ability to wake up one day and become a better player, which, you know, isn't really an option, you actually have to learn a lot of things for that, then you find that if you want to compete, you're just going to hit a ceiling if you don't just, you know, net deck and are able to better resolve the formula that is trying to like mathematically compete in Gwent. Right?
All right, then he says that yeah, the Gwent has more net decking than most games. I mean, every card game has a lot of net decking because you want to win. I mean, a lot of people like to win. That's that's what some people play for, and I don't necessarily agree with this because I play. If you play Hearthstone or Eternal or Hex or any of those games, you're gonna run up and you go into their casuals mode. I mean, of course, after you get past the beginning levels of, yeah, you're just fighting other people who are new to the game, you're going to run into a lot more net decks. Like, every single game is going to be pretty much a net deck, because in those games, net decks are pretty much the only way to go, because you can't run a fun deck and even have a chance against most of those net decks in most situations. So I don't know. I mean, in casuals, I'll run into that random guy running 40 card Foltest, or that guy who's running the combi Skellige combo that's pretty funny. I mean, I'll run into a lot of net decks, yes, but I would not say that I run into more net decks than I have in any other online card game. Can't really talk for paper card games because you really only go to tournaments, and of course everybody's net decking at tournaments. So yeah, saying adding that RNG to the game is going to stop net decking, that is not the case at all. Um, it's not going to change anyone's mind if they're going to net deck or not, and I definitely strongly disagree with that. I don't know how that would even help people from not net decking. I mean, yeah, you can play fun decks, which I mean, RNG cards would add more to fun decks, and I mean that's the fun type of RNG, not the competitive RNG. Adding fun RNG to the game, sure, because then there will be more options for fun decks for people to run, and maybe you'll see more not net decks and casuals because more people will want to play fun decks and try to pull off goofy things, and that I do not disagree with at all. But for as far as competitive RNG, that won't help net decking at all because then people are just going to net deck and have that competitive RNG card in their deck, and it's going to be coin flip if you win or lose or not. If you're facing someone of equal skill level, I should say that equal or close to your skill level. Like they can be a little bit of below your skill level and still beat you because they got lucky on their coin flip of RNG card. You're there's just like there's a big gap between the two players skill level, then yeah, competitive RNG cards aren't gonna help.
Esports needs to be exciting. One problem with Gwent is that in a lot of cases, probably way too many cases, because you have both hands right there, it ends up incredibly deterministic. It can be even from as soon as like 30 seconds into the game where you can be, 80-90% sure that one side will win.
Yeah, then he says that thing about the esports. The esports, that RNG cards make esports more watchable. I mean, for people who don't really play the game, sure, probably, but people who like the game, no, RNG cards do not make it more watchable. He says that you can decide who won just from their starting hand in most cases. Maybe for if you're a really, really high leveled player and you just know the ins and out and everything perfectly for the game, you can sort of tell. Even then, there can be turnarounds. Someone can make a misplay or they can bait something out. Um, I would not ever be able to guess from a starting hand if one side's going to win or not. And I actually watch Gwent tournaments because I found them interesting because they're more skill based. I've never watched a Hearthstone tournament. I mean, I think I watched one when I first started playing, and then once RNG came out, it was like, I don't even want to watch it. So I don't agree with that. But I mean, I've also watched paper tournaments for the ones I was into, like, oh, the World Cup for the Naruto card game or the World Cup for the Magic or um Yu-Gi-Oh card game. I've watched some of those because they're interesting. But of course, our paper card games don't really have RNG or a way to make RNG besides flip a coin because yeah, they can't do as many wacky things as you can with a computer, especially with things like rule sharks. But I do not think that RNG would make watching the Gwent tournament more enjoyable. I think honestly it would make it less enjoyable because yeah, I like Freddie Babes lost to a Dijkstra or really good Dijkstra pull just recently, and that was not amusing to watch. I mean, the other guy got lucky, and he got the perfect cards they needed from his Dijkstra, and it caused Freddie Babes to lose, and he's a really good player too. I mean, they're both good players, obviously, if they made it into a tournament, but it's still seeing a win pulled off like that in a tournament styled thing is not as entertaining to me personally. I don't honestly know about the overall player base, but seeing things like that is not as interesting to me as seeing someone actually outplay their opponent and bait out a certain card at the right time so they have the advantage in later rounds, or use their less important cards and have their opponent use their more important cards and then end up pulling off the win. Having it come down to something like a Dijkstra, that's something that I find more fun when I'm personally playing in casuals and not watching an actual tournament of like the best players.
To a decent degree. But good RNG is maybe there as kind of something that sets up more strategic plays rather than something being a finisher to strategic plays. Take the Discover mechanic, for example. Discover was touted in Hearthstone as pretty much like the best or one of the best mechanics ever added to the game, and that's because it's a nice compromise between RNG and actually having some like skill and variance. It creates some really unique situations and mixes games up while giving you as a player some way to dictate those situations, right?
Now he mentions the Discover mechanic from Hearthstone, which is what the new mechanic that we're basically getting in this card game. It does sort of lessen the impact of RNG, but not really. I mean, if the Discover mechanic sticks to things from your deck that you actually run in your deck, and or your opponent runs in their deck, either one would be fine. Then that's different than your opponent being able to choose from a pool of cards of anything in the game, or just like any special silver spell like that one, because you can't really play around every silver card in the game, and in a situation they could get really lucky and pull like a Maelstrom when you have all your units stacked. And I mean, that deck doesn't run Maelstrom, so why would you be playing around Maelstrom? Um, that's sort of a bad example, I guess, because if you're row stacking, you're probably not playing around the last raid too. But there's plenty of cards like a Scorch. You know their deck doesn't usually run Scorch because they run high-powered units in their deck, and they usually have high-powered units, so you're not playing around the Scorch. You're lining up your guys just fine. I mean, on opposite rows, so you're still playing around the Igni, but then they play that card. They discover a card. Oh, they get Scorch. Like, and you have higher units than them because usually you don't have to worry about that in that type of deck because they wouldn't run Scorch if they're running really high power units. But since they pulled that random Scorch, now you just lost all your higher units and feels bad. Feels bad when RNG wins your opponent the game. Or even when you win the game with RNG. I don't, unless it's a fun deck. But if you're in a competitive like ladder, if you're on ladder, losing a game to RNG really sucks. But yeah, that's about all the points he made. As far as RNG goes, some of them were really good. I mean, you can't totally disagree with some of them because, like the coin flip, it would bring the coin flip closer to a 50-50 win rate. Just not in the right way at all, I believe, because I don't want RNG in the game. RNG is not healthy for a game, I believe, because it's right now Gwent's in a nice place where skill really, really matters, and making the right plays really, really matters for if you're gonna lose or win a game. I mean, there's a small RNG if you're starting hand, yeah, but besides that, and adding RNG to the game will just make it so that way. I should probably just add in this random Hearthstone clip. I don't know if you guys would understand it, but it's pretty funny. It actually has life coach in it, and I guess I will just add it in. It's from an actual Hearthstone tournament. I saw it because it ended up in my recommended because it was pretty popular, of this kid who just pulled everything correctly from his RNG cards and beat his opponent at the right times because his cards gave him everything he needed, and he got lucky. But yeah, so play that one.
Hey, this is a decision that Pavel has made. Amnesiac does not play this card in his mage. This could be huge
Here we
for
go.
Pavel.
The perfect answer to the Maligos. This is going to blow Pavel, Amnesiac, sorry, out of the water. Oh, look at it. Oh, my God.
The heartbreak on the face from Amnesia. I think he actually pulled at his own hair a little bit there. He was so frustrated, and
I don't blame him.
That is an absolute backbreaker for Amnesiac, but he's portal number 2 because you can't just fire Lance portal or Sylvanas.
Oh my God!
What did I say?
We should just choose what cards have it.
I mean, in the words of the late great TJ Sanders, punished.
Oh, I mean, we would say Amnesiac needs to take a breath and recover from that polymorph. Can you recover from the second babbling buck? Look how happy the buck looks. I would want to cover that card on my screen if I was Amnesiac and just not want to look at it at all for the rest of this game. So guess what is going to happen? The Arcane Giant is going to die like an insect.
Is it though?
I'm feeling it.
You confident? Are you that confident in your read?
Yep.
All right.
Just because I've committed now, it's going to go face, I can tell.
Does clear out the minion. Amnesiac in a fantastic... Oh, Amnesiac in a terrible spot. Pavel in a fantastic
Definitely
spot.
not a fantastic spot from these.
That was a 50-50, of course, but the face damage there, not irrelevant as well, you know.
Then one more thing to add on to the swim part of this video is Swimmyhane actually on Reddit from this Reddit post, so I'll probably just flash it up real quick. Actually left a link to a really cool video that I'm really glad he actually brought to people's attention. I mean, he did link it right to the perfect part of, for example, of why RNG can feel bad and like even competitive RNG. But the whole video, like if you guys are interested at all in card games overall and stuff or game design, this video right here, I've watched this before because I usually watch the GDC videos, is actually a really good one. It's from the Magic the Gathering spokesperson, which is another card game, and he's a really good spokesperson, and he tells you some really interesting stuff in this video. So I mean, if you have the time, it's probably something you'd enjoy watching if you're into that stuff. But we'll just get into this little clip that this guy actually linked to, and I actually have to explain to you a little bit of what he's saying before you guys watch it, because you might not know what a Timmy, a Johnny, and a Spike is, but they're references in card games to the different types of players that there are in card games. Like, yeah, I'll probably just leave a link to a really good article that explains it really, really well, but I'll just give you the basic overview. Like a Timmy is someone who plays a game because they want to have fun. They don't really care if they win the game or not. They want to pull off some cool looking plays like Avalok the Sage into Iris, or like that guy who set it up. There's actually a video where the guy set up a bunch of harpies. He necker warried a bunch of harpies into his deck. He gave his harpies Gwent sign. Then he played Tremors, wiped out all his 1-power units, got a golem, and then all the harpies came out because all his 1-power units were beasts. And like he just swarmed the field with like 10 different harpies, and all these harpies did damage, and they all had 5 power, and they all had Gwent sign. And it was a really cool looking play, and it probably took them a lot of games to get it, but that's like an example of a Timmy. They like to do cool things with the games, things that look cool and are fun, and yeah, those are what the fun type of RNG cards are for. They're for the Timmy players. I believe that they would be good to have them in there, and I'm a bit of Timmy player. I'm a bit of all of them, so I mean, that's just what a Timmy is, because he does reference all 3 of these type of players in the little short clip that I'm going to show you. And then we got the Johnny player. The Johnny players are basically your deck builders. They get enjoyment out of the game by coming up with their own ideas, making it work, and making it happen. They like winning, for sure. They don't mind losing so much as long as they learn something from it, but what they get the most enjoyment out of is using their own ideas, their own resources to win the game, and not net decking or like counting on something else, which I'm not against any of these type of players. I'm actually a bit of all of them, so I mean, play the game how you want, play it how you enjoy it. It's what's a game for. That's what a game is for, is to get enjoyment out of it. So yeah, that's what a Johnny is. Yeah, they're just your deck builders, and they like to win by like making their own ideas and coming up with things that people haven't thought of that can actually work and be competitive. And then the last one is what's referred to as Spike. And Spike is usually what most card games have the most of. They're people who they like to win. They want to win. The more they win, the more they enjoy the game. So they're usually net decking, and they don't care how they win, as long as they win. So they're usually net decking, and it's usually the most amount of players that you run into in casuals and stuff is everyone who net decks, and they do that because net decks usually have the highest chance of winning, since they're already thought out decks, and they're what is good in the current meta for that card game. So that's what the 3 types are. So you guys know before you watch this little clip, because he says Timmy, Johnny, and Spike, and then if you don't know what those are, you're going to be totally lost. But yeah, here it is.
So let's talk about Ravnica in 2005. We made a card called Molten Sentry. So here's what it did. You flipped a coin when it came into play, and then either you got a 5-2, meaning 5 power, 2 toughness, or you got a 2 power, 5 toughness. And both of them were interesting. Both were balanced. They both were interesting things you could get. So let's look at the psychic graphics and examine this. I'm going to take Johnny and Jenny out because this card really isn't for them. Okay, so we got coin flipping. Oh, Timmy likes coin flipping. That's exciting. What's going to happen? Timmy enjoys that. We had balanced outcomes. Okay, Spike likes that. Spike, like, both things are good things, and I have interesting choices. Spike enjoys that. But let's flip them for a second. Balanced outcomes. Well, that's not really what Timmy's looking for. Timmy's looking for exciting things. When he flips the coin, ooh, is a bad thing or a good thing? He wants an exciting moment. And coin flipping, Spike doesn't want to flip a coin. He's all about skill. He wants to win. Yes, they're interesting choices, but he wants to make the choices. He doesn't want the choices to be random. So what happened when this card came out? The Timmys didn't like it because it was too spiky, and the Spikes didn't like it because it's too Timmy. You know, that the card, like, but trying to make different people happy, we made nobody happy. So lesson number 15 is design the component for the audience is intended for.
Yeah, to basically summarize what he said in that little clip is, it came up with a card that was balanced and had RNG with it because of the coin flip idea. And 2 and 5 is a really nice body in Magic the Gathering. 5 and 2 is pretty good too because you can use that to your advantage. But what ended up, they sort of try to please two different types of players with it. The people who get enjoyment out of making cool things happen because they added the coin flip mechanic, and the spikes because it was balanced. And they ended up making no one happy because, yeah, as he said, the spikes didn't like it because you couldn't guarantee the situation that you wanted. So RNG affected if they had a better chance of winning that match or not. Maybe they wanted that 2-5 at the moment, and or maybe they wanted the 5-2 at the moment, and that was really going to help them. But because they lost the coin flip, they got the other creature, and they felt like it ended up losing the game. And the Timmies didn't like it because, well, nothing really cool happens when you flip the coin. I mean, you get a monster with decent stats either way. That's pretty normal to the card game as vanilla units. So, yeah, just this is why I hope Gwent stays away from the whole RNG thing, unless keeping them non-competitive, like they said they would, like they were talking about in the thing. They said, "Oh, this card's non-competitive," and so it makes me think that they'll keep them non-competitive for the most part, and we won't have to deal with that. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on what Swim had to say. I mean, you guys can give your own thoughts or watch the whole video, which so you can see everything he has to say, and in all like chronological order without being cut into. Like, I took tiny pieces of it because I didn't want to just like show you guys the whole video in pieces and basically just steal his content. So yeah, that's about it for that one. And the next thing that I was going to talk about was a player. Oh yeah, it bothered me. This is more of a personal reason why it bothered me, why I wanted to talk about it. And there's this player called JJ Pollock. It wouldn't bother me so much if there's something, except for the fact of something that I'll get to in the end. He's a very unsportsmanship like player. He's pretty good at the game. Can't deny that because I mean he's been in a tournament before. But at that tournament, he didn't shake hands with his opponent when he lost. He doesn't GG when he loses games. When he loses, and he also has this thing of really talking down to his enemy, and just thinking that they're automatically worse than him overall. I'll just show you a couple of clips to actually give you an example of what I'm talking about here, because the way I say it does make it sound so bad. But yeah, we'll get into this first one.
This is gonna be the easiest game of my life, dude.
Special prize, just for you, love.
Just for you, love. What?
Mother will be proud.
Why would you play that first? What the fuck? I'm done, dude.
Show me the coin.
Out of all the fucking cards, you decide to play this guy first.
Yeah, he played his Morven, and he wanted him to play a 5-power unit, so Morven would kill it, and he wouldn't get that unit's effect. And he actually got mad at his opponent, and later on, if you watch the whole thing, I'll leave a link to that too, he ends up calling his opponent dumb for playing a different card instead of a card that Morven would have killed, and the opponent was actually playing around the Morven, because I mean there's only 3 ambush units. You know that's either Torval, Morven, or Ambusher. So that's not your opponent being worse than you. That's your opponent playing around a card, and he just automatically assumes that the opponent's going to play into his cards because they're a bad player. Then in the game exactly after that, his opponent does actually play into it, and this is what happens.
We need to complain about something at least.
Well then, let's get to work.
Get wrecked. Get wrecked, boy!
Gotta hand it to you. Good work.
Yeah, so when his opponent doesn't play into a Morven, they're a bad player, and when they do, and it totally screws them over, he actually spam taunts them and proceeds to say how crap they are. Now, things like this, I normally wouldn't have a problem with, because I mean, there's people like that all over. One of them's bound to be good at whatever game. I mean, it's not something that I usually worry about, but something more personal, because in the next clip that I'm going to show you is actually something that went pretty viral around the Gwent community with the 20 point shiny in Radovid, Africa. So that has something more to do with it, because as you guys know, and we'll get into that clip in a second, but as you guys probably have guessed, because my username, if you haven't seen it, my username is Otaku Academy, and I'm pretty big otaku. I've loved anime all my life, along with card games, which is why I've played them so much, but anime has always had bad rep, and especially growing up the time that I did. I mean, so you let people know that you liked anime then? People tend to not like you just because you were into that kind of thing. But, yeah, or same thing with video games back then, too. Because you were pretty much playing Final Fantasy and stuff. I mean, video games weren't as big as they were. As PS2 days. But then it actually ended up transferring to the internet because, I mean, recently, like, I say recently as in like 2, 3 years ago, weebos, otakus, weebo trash, this stuff has become pretty popular. I mean, it doesn't bother me so much, really, but it's become popular because the way the anime industry works, there's really good works of art for anime. Like, you got things like Death Note.
It seems you can kill people without having to be there in person. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't just witnessed it. Listen to me, Kira. If you did indeed kill Lynd L. Taylor, the man who you just saw die on television, I should tell you that he was an inmate whose execution was scheduled for today. That was not me.
What? Tokyo Ghoul. Steins Gate.
Get out of here, Mayuri! Whatever you do, don't stop running!
Why are they chasing us?
Don't worry about me! Just keep running!
Black Lagoon.
You understand? Or else I'm gonna weld your asshole shut and make you a new one on your head! Got it! Touch!
She's smiling.
Those are all really good ones that I personally enjoy. I mean, I could list a ton of them because I've been watching it all my life, but I mean, then you got things that make it look really bad, and those are the ones that get publicized a lot, like the harem animes and the ecchi animes that are all the rage. A lot of them come out in a season, which is basically anime with lots of sexual innuendos and barely dressed characters. So, yeah, that stuff tends to give you a bad name. And then you got the awkward, cringy people who end up making it worse with like things like body pillows and stuff. And but yeah, this all leads into the thing that actually bothers me with JJ Pollock. But it's because of this next clip that I'm showing you with the 20 points shiny, the whole thing. If you guys haven't seen it, I mean, I usually don't swear on my channel, so if that the type of thing bothers you, just mute it till the end of the clip because there's a lot of it in this one. But yeah, I'll just let that play.
Yes, against fucking Radovid Africa, who does 20 fucking points with Shani. Are you fucking retarded? But you don't fucking tell me how to fucking play when you're not even a fucking pro leather player.
Watch and learn. Sure, be glad
I'm Africa. I'm a fucking genius.
Your path will guide us.
Yeah, and he freaks out because somebody in his chat, just to give you a reference, just in case you don't totally understand what's going on, there was a guy called Africa, LOL Africa or something in his chat, and he was telling him, oh no, you want to try pass against this guy, and he's telling him why he's wrong, and that he's not a pro ladder player, so he shouldn't give him any suggestion on how to play the game. He ends up freaking out because he thinks a 20-point power play is like the most OP thing in the world, apparently. But yeah, he has all this anime stuff around his border to stop people from stream sniping him. Like he has Maria Nikki on his sidebar to stop his tracker because he runs a tracker. So they can't see what he runs in his deck. And then he has Maria Nikki again from Future Diary in the bottom row. And of course, some of the top comments and stuff is like, oh, of course he's a weeb. And this is why it bothers me. And it probably, the bad sportsmanship should probably bother me more. But it's this because the first introduction people get into an otaku player from Gwent who's really good is this guy. This guy. With his Radovid Africa. That's why I don't much care for him, because he just gives it more of a bad name of something that I actually have enjoyed my life and dealt with the hate from, because I mean, even on like games like Neverwinter's an RPG, and I'm running my Otaku Academy name, and I get people saying, "Oh, you weeb, you weebo trash." But it's probably because their first introduction to somebody who's actually interested in that genre is somebody like J.J. Pollock, or the guy with the body pillow, or the insane amount of ecchi anime there is, because I'm one of those people who usually checks through every new season that anime comes out and sorts through all the trash to try to find something good that's actually has an in-depth storyline. It's actually really good. So that's just two things I want to talk about. Yeah, the dislike or whatever you guys want to do. That's about it. I just wanted to give you guys some of my opinions on some things and give you a little bit more info about myself. So this one's probably not going to have any tags on it or anything, because it's more going to be geared towards you guys, my subscribers, because somebody who actually knows me a little bit. And that's about it for this one, guys. If you guys enjoyed, until next time, have a good one.